Most of our mowing accounts was just through purchases of other
Gotcha.
companies and then dissolved them. We actually got rid of all but a few of our residential clients. It's got to be 95% commercial.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Mo Money, Mo Problems podcast. I'm your host, Matt Foreman. And today we've got Trevor Maack with New Horizon Landscaping and Design out in Lincoln, Nebraska. They are currently doing $1.6 million in annual revenue, and they've had the business since 1998. So, Trevor, amazing having you, man. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I know this is obviously going to be a loaded question, and we're going to take a trip down memory lane, but what brought you into the green industry? How did we get started?
Well, 98, so a long time ago. My dad and I had always been in soil conservation, earth moving, dozers. And as a kid, we would always do some small landscape projects around people's homes, even though we were doing field terraces, waterways, and so on, that I always had a desire to do that. So I would do that once in a while at 16 years old. I had a desire to do that. But after a while, the main goal that my dad had was for me to run that business. And I was more of a people person. So it was a little lonely outside just running a dozer all day long by yourself. So my desire was to get into the green industry somehow, landscaping wise. I always enjoyed doing that. After a while, went off to college, found that I had a degree at that time in marketing and management. Tried a few other things, and inevitably I went right back to where I kind of started just like anybody else does at that young age, a truck and a shovel and just word of mouth and eventually grew. Took a while in this market, but we got to a point where we're making leaps and bounds more so than we were 20 some years ago. So
Yeah. So
just getting a foothold in the market helps.
So you're a very full service company. Like you do all spectrums of everything. Were you always that, or did you start with one service, start adding things on? Did you remove any services? Has New Horizon just kind of like evolved into something that it previously wasn't?
Actually, for the most part, we started in hardscaping. So retaining walls and paver patios was what I had the most interest in. So that's usually what we gravitated towards. And as the business grew, I knew that I had to have somebody else to help me. So I got in close with some apartment complexes, some builders, and the business then started to migrate more towards back to the equipment, a lot of grading of homes. And then because of the grading, then we got into more the landscaping aspect of it because the builder, always had us finish the retaining walls or do a little bit of landscapings. As the business grew, I knew that I had to hire other people to do, the softscape part of it. So then that kind of opened up that door for our softscape division.
Gotcha.
And and then mowing as it came to be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So you're doing the design and installs, and you're also doing maintenance work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's about 10 to 15% of our business is in the maintenance side, which maintenance the category is it's both commercial and residential. And within that, it's bed maintenance, quite a bit of it's bed maintenance and turf care. And then there's mowing, but our mowing side is relatively small.
Is that by design?
Actually, so in our market, I guess to get back to it a little deeper, our market is pretty saturated with mowing, and so that part of it's pretty cutthroat. So you really have to be pretty competitive on your pricing. And because of that, over the years, I have taken and purchased other companies that had mowing, and the desire of that was specifically to achieve a 12-month service contract with the commercial so that we could do the snow removal and maintain that revenue stream so that we could continue to build our workforce and maintain, at least at this moment, we have about 7 to 8 people that we keep on year round and in hope that it either snows or that we have a long or a mild winter like we have had here recently.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's how we've acquired most of our mowing accounts, was just through purchases of other companies and then dissolved them.
So, when it comes to like the mowing side, I know you said like that's a smaller portion. Like, is there a desire to grow it? Obviously, I know that's kind of harder on the margins versus like obviously a design build project. Like, what's the plan in terms of like allocation of types of jobs, like percentage wise? Like where do we want to be?
So as far as where I want to be, on some days that fluctuates, or weeks or years. The mowing, due to the fact that it's such a small portion of our landscape side, it's easier overall to find staff. So in this market, I can always find someone that has previous experience mowing. So due to that, we have discussed the possibility of increasing that revenue side, which with the contacts that we have, I think it could easily be done. But to get into that portion of a new mower is going to cost you, at least 15 grand, and you've got a truck and a trailer to go along with it. So there's obviously quite a bit of expense to expand that side of it. But yeah, there is a desire maybe to move that needle a little bit more up towards that 20% mark later into the season. Then we have snow removal for those commercial accounts. But primarily our goal, if we were to increase the size of our mowing side, we want to gain more commercial than residential clients.
Yeah. So what do you do right now then to like get commercial accounts? Because I imagine it's not imagine. I know that it's not the same sort of acquiring accounts like as it would be, let's say, a homeowner. Like, what do you do to get that? Like, are they coming to you? Is it you going out and building those relationships? Because I know you said early on you had good relationships. I believe you said with some other commercial accounts. Is that right?
Right. So it is basically word of mouth in Lincoln, the industry. We have several clients of our commercial clients that continue to build. They're national companies, and as they build other facilities, they just ask us to continue to maintain those. So that has definitely helped. We've got into some really really good vendors and been fortunate for that. But outside that, most of the opportunities here reside with apartment complexes that usually are looking for, they usually don't have much allegiance, it seems like, in this industry here, or in this territory anyway. And because of that, they usually change their staff over about every 3 years. So that
Mm,
means that the maintenance side of the mowing side goes with it, I guess. And also is our advertising. The way that we use our advertising is with keyword searches definitely help us. We use a marketing company out of Colorado that's done really well by us.
awesome. So in terms of like the different the spread on residential versus commercial, like where are you like do you have a good 50-50 split? Do you lean heavier one way? Do you have a preference one way or the other?
Yeah, so definitely more commercial in this town. Commercial is kind of key to us anyway, just because we want that 12-month contract, and also the ability to maintain, well, to remain on that site for a longer period of time, right? So the less travel, less gas spent, of course, more time making money on that particular site rather than drive time. So that's why we've gravitated more towards the commercial end of things. But I would say, a few years ago, we actually got rid of all but a few of our residential clients, and we've
Really?
just focused strictly on the commercial side. So, as far as the split there, I don't have an exact number for you, but I would say it's got to be 95% commercial.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. And so what do you do? Obviously, like sometimes it might be out of your hands, especially if there's no like loyalty with who their service provider is. Like, how do you maintain relationships with these commercial accounts? Because I can imagine like losing an account, like any commercial account, is a tough financial strain versus, let's say, losing one homeowner.
absolutely. It absolutely is. Learning from the trades, I've been in this business for 28 years. Learning from previous experiences is to have constant contact with them. And that would be more of a personal contact from me or one of my managers. So they get that personal touch so that they still have a connection with us. Has definitely helped. That would be, uh, we send them cards for Christmas if there's, the owner of the place, and we'll do a few special things for them if we can, just to show the what's the word I'm looking for, just
Appreciation.
the appreciation. Yeah, there you go. For the business that they've given us. So doing some special things maybe at their house, or being more attentive is actually one of the biggest ones. We have a pretty large client here locally that owns a lot of commercial properties. Every time he buys another one, he does give us the opportunity to maintain those properties. As a result, then anytime he calls and asks for something, instead of putting him a month behind before we can get to him, he moves up to the top of the list.
Mhm. That's awesome. And I think that's such an amazing takeaway that I definitely abide by is showing that appreciation, even if it's something small. It shows that you've gone above and beyond. The person or organization isn't just another statistic. It's somebody that you are intentionally like nurturing a relationship, showing that you care about their account. We kind of abide by a book that I don't know if you've heard of it. It's How to Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey
No, but
Coleman.
I'll look it up.
I highly recommend it. Very good read. It sounds like you're already implementing a lot of that stuff, but maybe it'll unlock some other like really cool stuff. Because yeah, we love sending out gifts to our clients and just showing that appreciation. And yeah, so it's something that like something so small like that makes you stand out. And it's like, why the heck am I going to get rid of this company that obviously does a great job, but also like something like a Christmas card, like that's awesome. Like, where are you going to get that sort of personalization and care? And so, and I think that's definitely key to maintaining, especially such a big like commercial account. Obviously, we would love to do this for homeowners as well, but that could get a little bit pricey.
Yeah, right.
So, in terms of the work you're providing, I know one of the big things that you're doing is drainage, right?
Yeah, we do quite a bit of drainage.
So, how big of an issue is that in your market?
Here, quite large. Midwest, most of the ground in the city limits is stripped. So there is no organic material left. It's all hard pan clay. So naturally, anything that's over in people overwater their yard in town here, and then that water doesn't go anywhere other than to the remains on the surface. So there's a excessive amount of drain tile that we do here in town as a result.
Do we see drainage being like one of those services that surprise people? Like when you start recommending it, like do people call for one thing and it's like actually you got a much bigger issue as it relates to drainage and obviously all that runoff. What does that typically look like?
Yeah. So actually, we just had one yesterday. Guys got in there, did some drainage. They had a constant wet spot in their backyard. No reason other than just the grade wasn't really properly addressed. But when we opened up that trench, water filled the trench completely full. So that's always a good feeling that you're doing the right thing. But that's going to help reduce the sump pump discharge, and it's going to help that grass grow. So I guess I got kind of off topic.
No, I mean, that flows into my next question is like, well, how do you typically sell that? Because I would imagine like obviously people care more about the visual, what they're seeing, but obviously if you're seeing the underlying problems, do you ever see pushback? And if so, do you have like sort of like your approach to kind of letting them know why this is necessary?
Yes, actually, it's knowledge, right? Knowledge is key. So with our staff, we actually have them certified in erosion control and drainage. And the staff that I have is very knowledgeable. Most of the guys that are on my management side have 10 plus years in the industry individually. So they've usually encountered most of that.
Gotcha. So you currently have your team like trained up, well educated. They're able to speak on the problems, speak on the solutions. Is that something that's kind of like mandatory within your company? Because I'd imagine you're probably not on every single quote that you go out to. That
Not
you're
every, but most. I'm
okay.
still after this long, I'm still the lead designer, and I also do all the bids. The only thing that I don't do is actually on the mow side. The mow side is taken care of by another person within my staff. But yes, all of my managers are certified in drainage and erosion control, and also they are certified in hardscaping. So NCMA certifications in pavers and retaining walls.
So is that something that's trainable for everybody? Do people have to come in with some sort of experience? Like, what does that look like? Because I know one of the hardest things in this entire industry is employment, making sure you're getting a good, reliable crew, maintaining them. Like, is that something that you can get anybody trained up on, or is that something that you're like looking for a very specific type of person?
Absolutely. So the staff that I have, I would say maybe one of them came with some certifications as far as on the landscape side. But our goal is to make, and I learned this years ago in this industry, when you find somebody good here locally, you definitely want to do what you can to maintain that person on your staff. And we give them an allowance, annual allowance that they can put towards education that they prefer. as long as it's in the green industry. So our pesticide and applicators fertilizer, they have to be certified. Obviously, if there's another one on my team that has that desire, then we'll bring them up and we'll pay for the certification and the testing. Same goes for the NCMA. If we do pavers or retaining walls and they want certification, we allow it to happen. We also give them the ability in the wintertime. They go to, as far as Kansas City, that's about as far as we'll go, but they're allowed to take and go and get paid for that day to set through seminars on education of whatever green industry there is locally here too. We actually, that is a prerequisite as far as my staff is concerned. They do have to set through those as long as they're available to us, just for continued education to make sure that there's anything on the market that they're not aware of for that season. And that's all done in the wintertime too, when we're slower.
Gotcha. So it sounds like obviously you're willing to financially invest in these in your team, but you're also
Absolutely.
willing to invest in the future of your team. And so you see things like that continued education as a really good retention point for your staff.
For sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So what are you doing right now? Like if you were to become short staffed, like do you have like a trick up your sleeve that other people could probably also take a look at? Like if you need a new crew today, like would you know what the next steps would be?
That is our biggest problem.
Yeah.
Almost daily. The staff that we have, the managers in place and their crew leads, that staff we've had for a number of years. But when you get down into the labor category, that is awfully, awfully difficult. At New Horizon, I want someone that has previous experience. They have to have previous experience. So even at our labor level, we want them to have at least a month's worth of experience, but we'll train them the way we want, but we really don't take any greenhorns necessarily. So that in itself makes it more difficult because that shrinks your pool of people and candidates. So of course we use we'll use job boards and things, and we found a few other ones that but haven't been real successful for us. We'll advertise on maybe Facebook and we'll do those job boards. Job boards work best for us, but they also are incredibly expensive per month. I think for the client, most of our employees will cost us somewhere around $75 to $150 to acquire. I think that's kind of excessive from back in the day when I could usually find somebody much cheaper.
Yeah. Throw a rock and find someone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's maybe just the change and of the dynamics of the youth. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm really interested because this is a common problem for a lot of our northern clients is
Okay.
the winters.
Yeah.
So and I see, and you've already talked about snow services. I saw on your website that you also offer holiday lighting. So that's great. I would imagine that does help kind of keep staff engaged because one of the things that a lot of it seems owners have to wrestle with is okay, well, we want to maintain our staff. We don't want to lose them because they're already so hard to come by, but we also have to be making money in the winter to financially be able to support that. Has moving into obviously you do snow, but I was really interested to see the holiday lighting. Like, has that offset some of the expenses of salary still needing to be paid?
Well, it helps. It helps more pay their salary than as a revenue stream for the business. So I guess it's not necessarily a deduction, but it isn't something that we actually have that much of a revenue. The amount of money that we've made in the past is pretty insignificant on that side. But we did have, several years ago, I pursued that pretty heavily. And as houses get bigger, two-story homes, ladders, safety,
Hmm.
restraints, and for the amount of money that people were willing to pay, you really had to have that special client that was willing to pay a good amount of money to have somebody up there risking them from potentially getting hurt. So yes, we still do it, but most of our stuff is going to be a ranch style home. At the time, it was it generated quite a bit of profit, but fortunately in this industry here now in Nebraska, because our climate is a little more timid than it used to be as far as the bigger snows and driving rains or more arid anymore. Being that due to that fact, we're able to landscape most of the season. So we
Great.
really, and the landscape side, we really only take off if we have to, of course, due to the winter. But between snow pushing, we really don't take off more than maybe about 3 weeks to a month. And it's either installing retaining walls, or paper patios if the ground's not frozen. And in here, it's been pretty mild winters. So But we've digressed a bit from the holiday lighting install. But as far as the removal, it's great because then we have a little bit of that time because that obviously is right around the middle of January when you're starting to take those lights down. So it does give another team a little bit of revenue stream to bring in. So it's not a bad option. It's just has gotten kind of expensive insurance wise, gone up. The fact that yeah, so we've stepped back a little bit from it and focused more on our main revenue sources of landscaping and snow removal.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So, I'm always interested in the businesses that have been around, especially in the '90s. I think that's just an incredible thing, especially considering, shoot, how many, like, three massive economical crashes
Yeah.
since then. How did I'm thinking dot-com bubble, housing crash of 2008, and then COVID, which, I mean, COVID had a dip and then a massive uptick after that. Walk me through. I'm sure everybody's really interested. How did you weather those storms?
Which one do you want me to start with?
Let's start back in the day, 2001. I'm sure your website was popping off. It was looking great, and that's where everybody was finding you. It was on the internet, I'm sure. I'm kidding.
So, right? Yeah. So no, that's back when we were spending probably $1,000, a ridiculous amount of money. Probably wasn't 1,000. It was probably, maybe over $1,000 a year, but it was all print, right?
Yeah.
Is print advertising it. And then as we started to grow, I've always been somewhat technical person. So I thought, so that was when we, jumped on board with, I think back then it was probably GoDaddy. They developed a website that was, and we had the cards that we handed out. So it was a big transition because we didn't know how to work with it, nor how to respond to it actually, and then how
Sure.
much the expense was going to be. We weathered the storm, but at that time, that was, we were only 3 years in business. I think at 3 years in business, to be completely honest with you, it was me and two other people or three at that point. So being that small, we had enough to handle ourselves.
Mhm.
The .com really didn't hit us until maybe 5 to 6 years after that, where I really got interested in how to develop the right page. But yeah, we went through a lot of mishaps, a lot of people that we relied on to build us a good page. Now that I know a little bit more about it, that back end part where they tag the pictures correctly, those weren't being done. So actually, it just basically flatlined because your Google search wasn't picking any of those things up. So I was spending an exorbitant amount of money on these people to do these things that, of course, I thought they knew something about, and to have it fall flat
Yeah.
and wasn't generating any revenue until I found actually the company that I'm still with today was the one thing that really helped propel us just because they gave me the knowledge to understand the process. And
Great.
without that, so that is, yeah, it was several years of just going through and actually knowing what they know about web development that made a huge difference. As far as the building side, that year, just that it was about the transition that I made into landscaping, more dominant in the landscape side than the grading side. At that time in 2008, my business was really focused a lot on grading. I was grading, in an average year, I think we graded for one builder. He built about 150 homes a year. And that's what we did every day. We had two teams out and we graded. And then I had another team that would start to help with a little bit of landscaping. And then I would, of course, do a lot of the landscaping in between grading. That was when the spec homes were prominent. And that after that kind of dropped out, then we didn't have those builders that necessarily were calling us anymore. So we then shifted to the landscape side, which was good because relying on builders to get you paid on time and you've got salaries to meet was a challenge. So it was
Mhm.
nice to kind of that forced my hand a bit to focus more on that landscape side, and so that was beneficial to us. And of course, 2000, what was that? So the COVID, that side actually was probably one of our better years.
Yeah.
Of course, like everybody says, right? So but that really didn't affect us much other than the protocol for employees, how to be around each other. But as in the landscape industry, we didn't have to shut down like the restaurants did. Thank goodness. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it was a difficult year to understand, but we we made it through, That was, like I said, it was everybody at that time was focused more on, so there was no travel and everybody was focused on their yards, landscaping, creating that vacation spot in their yards rather than abroad. And so that really helped drive our busy time or our busy year there for us, our revenue stream.
Yeah. COVID was it seems so interesting because world technically, well, it was said to shut off, but then like you see that like V-shaped recovery economically, everybody's staying at home. We've seen a lot of clients that previously coming out of COVID like did so well that it was actually a regression afterwards. Like they're
Yes.
almost like, man, we wish we can get back to the money that was coming in during those days. Are you seeing something similar to that?
Yeah. Well, That was a that was a different time for me, to be honest with you. That was a time that was 19, and what had happened was so as long as I've been in business, I had a farm, and we used a barn out there. And at about that time, well, it was probably about 18. The people that I'd rented the barn from had sold. We went into a storage locker and worked out of a storage locker for a year. And I just thought, this is terrible. We've got to move in. We've got to do better than this for our clients and for our staff. So I ended up shopping and I found the facility that we're in now. It was just dilapidated junk. Well, we had of a business area. The business side of it, or the office side of it, was just complete disarray. And so, because I had staff that needed to find something to do in the wintertime, of course, we renovated the entire place, repainted it, put all new walls up, and did the whole shebang. And because of that, the market was pretty lax on commercial properties. So we ended up getting a property that was pretty underpriced compared to what it's worth today.
Mm, yeah.
And at that time, I also bought another business, a little larger business that I spent a pretty fair amount of money on. And so with that came their staff. And so we did see that upswing at that time, we were running 3 mow crews, and then we had 4 landscape crews and maintenance crew. Maintenance crew, I say bed maintenance. And that was growing pains for sure, trying to figure out what to do with them, trying to get the schedules corrected. They were working, they were working 7 days a week, getting themselves burnt out. My payroll was
Yeah.
through the roof. And so it was definitely a challenge. But after we determined that, we found, as with anything, when you get a client list, you don't know exactly who's good and bad. And of course, we went through and weeded those out and determined what our good clients were, and we've maintained those ever since. And so I think, it's hard for me to actually speak for that 2019, just simply because I was doing a lot in one time. And I did, nobody knew COVID was coming. So this was all in all just, thrown on my plate in that year collectively. So to digress, yes, but actually our P&L statement looked better in subsequent years,
Sure,
to say the
sure.
least.
Yeah, yeah. So you've now been in business for almost 30 years. Isn't that a crazy thing to say out loud?
Yeah, it's crazy. Never thought it'd happen.
You mentioned a
Thought
few
I'd be
times,
working for
so
somebody else by now.
right. But you mentioned a few times though, so few business purchases, which is very interesting. Obviously, that is a growth tactic. It does a couple things. Obviously, it adds immediate accounts. It also buys out competition. Is that something that is always planned? Does it just kind of happen when it happens? Like, how does it like? Are you constantly looking for the next thing to purchase?
I have. So let's see. The first one that ever approached me he actually was looking for a job, and it was somewhat of a failing business. And I just don't think he wanted to put in the time, but he had some decent accounts. I still have those accounts to this day. And that had to have been at that point 15 years ago. No, actually, no, it's longer ago than that. It's 17 or 18 years ago. I've still maintained those accounts. But that first one fell into my lap, and then I kind of understood the process. The cost of doing business at that time seemed to be simpler and actually cheaper to obtain those accounts than to do the grassroots marketing and going through and knocking on doors. That was very, very tough. It's always been tough. It's a little bit easier now, I should say, than it used to be. And I think it's word of mouth. Most of the time, if somebody recognizes your name in the community, then they're willing to give you a shot. But back then, when I was relatively new to the game in the lawn care side of things, no one really wanted to take a chance on somebody. So that's how I acquired those. And the first one approached me, and then the second one, was a post of some kind that I'd found on probably Facebook at that time. And then the most recent one was that 2019 purchase, and that would have been that was a friend of a friend that knew I was in the market from acquiring another company, and so that
Gotcha.
one's been very beneficial to us too. But that was a decent takeover. It was a decent sized business, and we took all of their employees and worked with them, and then we bought all their equipment too.
And so are these all mowing specific accounts?
Actually, they were, every one of them was.
Yeah. Is that the plan moving forward, or are we still trying to, like, acquire more mowing accounts
Yeah, I've
or
eh,
more
I've been
mowing business?
interested in that, specifically this last one that, I say last one, it's been now 7 years, but that is for the revenue stream, that has been very beneficial for the amount of money that I pay. Usually, depending on negotiating, you usually can get those paid off, and if it's a decent enough count, I can get them paid off in 2 years. I just have to maintain a 3rd year. So you do take a certain amount of risk, but if I can grow from that and my staff is able to upsell some things and maybe add another service, then that certainly brings in, more opportunities for us. And a lot of those at the time, we're still kind of trying to sell even those at this point. They still maintain another snow removal account. Sometimes it's the snow removal that they hang on to with another client or with another contractor, I should say. So we've tried to upsell them on the fertilizer services. We've upsold them on the snow removal services. And then as long as it's a good enough commercial account and they continue to buy properties or build buildings, it's ongoing. So those have been very, very good to us financially.
Awesome. So what's the, like, 3 to 5-year picture for New Horizon?
Yeah, so we're going through that right now, and that's probably due to some of our technical difficulties. We're trying to get this meat as to. I'm sure you've heard. The owners are always working in the business rather than on the business, and so I'm one of those. I very much enjoy what I do. I love the design work and the just meeting with people, and definitely it's a passion of mine. But at some point, I want to step back and focus more on the business side. The phone number we're talking on today is still my phone number I've had for 29 years,
Good
28
on you, man.
years, and so still comes directly to me. That was a few years ago, and then we started doing some call mirroring so that we could get the office to pick it up, so it wasn't coming to me or I wasn't forwarding on. So we just, we'd done that. Now we're going to an automated system. If you remember Grasshopper, I know you're not that old. If you don't, but
I'm familiar with it.
okay, okay. So there was a company that kind of had that hub where you called into a number and then it kind of portioned out to other managers or divisions. And so we're implementing that in the business now at the same rate we're doing some payroll processing. Well, we've never really done payroll processing in-house just because it's something I don't really want to delve into. So we have electronic payments, check processing for our employees that we're doing now so that they can get their funds quicker. So a lot of this is to have me focus more on the administrative part and the building of the business and keep from having to continue the long hours of an administrator. But we'll take it to that next level.
Yeah,
That
I
was
mean,
my
it
focus.
sounds like that's gonna be such a helpful move for you. Obviously, being the owner, you're still going to have some administrative duties, and it makes it even harder when you're out in the field. It makes it even harder when you're answering all the calls. So I think it sounds like the business itself has a great trajectory, has a great reputation in the area, which on itself, plus the fact that you have a marketing agency helping out with that growth there, it sounds like you're primed for that continued growth. So now just kind of tightening up the internals of everything is really going to, like, help take you to the next level there. Yeah, because I definitely understand the growing pains of introducing new tech, new systems internally, especially I mean, I can't imagine, like, doing something for 30 years and then it's like, all right, now it's time to switch things up. I'm sure there will be some growing pains, but I'm certain that once you kind of get all that admin stuff, you're going to breathe a lot easier. You're not going to
Yes.
be so burnt out. But probably your team too. Like, once you get all those systems and tools that are available to everybody, I'm sure that everyone's going to appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a great business to be in, but it has its challenges. Certainly, personnel is probably your hardest challenge. I think that's with anybody that's in the green industry or construction.
Yeah. Well, Trevor, we're just about wrapping up on time, man. So I want to just do kind of like the one last thing. If you could just do the, like, do the pitch of the business. Who are you? Who's the business? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Well, it's Trevor, the owner of New Horizon Landscaping, Lincoln, Nebraska. Started this business from nothing and built it to something here that I can be proud of. Servicing residential and commercial clients in landscaping, lawn care. We're kind of what I call a complete landscape business from start to finish.
Well, Trevor, you've built an incredible business. Again, almost 30 years. So congratulations on that. And
Thank
I'll
you.
be sure to reach out to you once you hit that 30-year mark to give you
Yeah,
another congratulations in real time. Um,
appreciate
but
that.
yeah, you've definitely been through the ringer from all of the US and world economy things. You survived through all of that, built an amazing business. You're crushing in the commercial game too. So I hope that people that are listening to this have can take away some of the things that Trevor's doing from the merger and acquisition side, because I mean, hey, mowing isn't the sexiest thing and building that isn't always the most fun. And so look, he went out there and like started buying up these smaller businesses. It reduces competition. Things are already built in. And sure, there's obviously the risks that you have to take, especially financially, and probably the headache of bringing on new staff that's kind of has to get into your way. But I mean, you're continuing to grow a side of things while also continuing to grow other divisions. And I think you're doing an amazing job with that. So I really want to thank you for sharing your time, sharing your wisdom for everybody here. And if anybody's watching this and you've got something out of it, or you know somebody you think might get something out of it, highly recommend that you share this episode with somebody. Otherwise, Trevor, thank you so much for being here, man. It was a pleasure talking to you. Pleasure getting
Thanks,
to
Matt.
meet you and learn your story. And again, I'll definitely be following up to congratulate you on that upcoming 30-year anniversary. So congratulations to you,
Appreciate
man.
you. Thank you, sir.
You
Appreciate
got
you,
it.
Matt.